Hello, Steve. We're back running again. Have you got anything that you would like to discuss today?
Yes. We're on about your little tidbits that you've found out about in the first half of this. It's like a bonus, I suppose,
Mm.
but a bonus of because this one will be around about twice as long as what we normally do.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think that some of these things here are interesting that I want to touch upon. As you know, I'm more about uh, comparing and contrasting as the what what the press in the UK say
Yeah.
and what's actually happened geopolitically,
Mm.
uh, which I suspect would be a lot more important than what the press in the UK are feeding
Mm.
the end user,
Yeah.
the public. So, as we know, this last week, the press has been on about Suella Braverman,
Mm.
the lady. Did she ask for help to organise her driving course?
Mm.
After being caught speeding,
Mm.
or what did she not? You know, and this took the mainstream media days and days and days discussing
Mm.
it. I watch channels like GB News
Yeah.
or Talk Radio's quite or Talk TV, Talk Radio
Mm.
is quite interesting. Some of the subjects that they bring up,
Mm.
and they just sort of bring up these light subjects.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go deep into a
Mm.
subject, and sometimes they just which deserves to go deep.
Mm.
And but the most of the time, it's just a light subject about a squabble or something like that.
Yes.
And and this consumes the audience. This
Mm.
this the audience they get in contact and send the messages and all this.
Mm.
It's something light and that's all they're consumed by. This really brief
Yeah.
subject that of two people squabbling.
Yes.
So when that ran its course,
Yeah.
uh, having no other bogeyman
Mm.
to talk about, um, they brought Boris Johnson back in for some other parties that he may have had during the
Mm.
lockdown period of COVID,
Yeah.
and that went on for a couple of days until today,
Yeah.
where the immigration report was published.
Mm.
And this last year, 600,000 people
Mm.
were allowed immigration status in the UK, which
Yeah.
the city, more or less the size of Manchester, apparently.
Mm.
You know, so and Rishi Sunak saying, well, could be better. We'll take care of it.
Mm.
Which,
Yeah.
of course, if they wanted to take care of it, they would have done they said that students that go to the UK to
Mm.
study
Mm.
can take their dependents, basically can take the whole family.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
you go as a mature student, and you take the whole family. If you go
Mm.
to some of these academies that are bogus academies,
Mm.
you get your student visa, and you're like
Yeah.
40 years old. You take your wife, your kids,
Yeah.
your cousins, and that's what's what. And they've decided that that started from January,
Mm.
they're going to stop this thing about taking your dependents with you.
Yeah.
Why January? Why not today? Why not tomorrow? It's because September this year,
Mm.
September
Take.
is when in the UK when
Yeah.
people start to do the term begins in September.
Yeah. The intake is already there. Yeah.
So they don't want these universities and colleges to be out of pocket.
Mm.
Why they wait until January because of next year.
Yeah.
So basically, they say to the university, you've got a year to sort yourselves out.
Mm. Yeah.
You know. But if it was the other way around, If it wasn't allowed and all of a sudden it is allowed to bring it, they'd say no. Starting from today, you can bring your family. You know,
it is a I mean, yeah, immigration at the moment is a hot topic, and yeah, I mean, the trouble is if you do question it, I mean, given that we're immigrants, to put a better term in it, in Brazil as well. So looking at it this way, but we're legitimately here. I'm married to a Brazilian. I didn't marry a Brazilian to move here. I married it, and it just my life turned that way. A bit like myself, probably things happen.
I've got kids here, so
yeah. So yeah, it is a but that's not to say that we're not saying immigration is bad. Of course it isn't. And when people come in and contribute to society,
it's when it is uncontrolled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. And I think that's,
when it's uncontrolled, that's a problem, because the UK government had 600,000 illegal immigrants, legal.
Yeah.
All those that they insist about now calling them small boats.
Yeah,
they're still coming. They're still coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much. Yeah, when they arrive, they are going to be claiming asylum. I believe a lot of them. I don't know the figures for all this.
No, that's a given.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and I mean, it has been reported that some people have been claiming asylum from country that the British British travel agents have been organising trips to. So if it's such a dangerous country, why is that happening? I'm not saying there are places in the world and there aren't deserving cases, and we all know that. It is a yes. I mean, there are ways to stop it. We're paying another country, France, to prevent this happening. From what I understand, I don't know if them payments are still being made or it has happened. And hey, they're getting an escort by the French Navy, handed over to the British Navy, and unfortunately, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, who are a charitable fund, who are being hit because this is all coming out. Yeah, we used to think that was a very noble cause, and it is. They do save lives, but they're being used as a taxi service. I'm probably overemphasizing it. I mean, yeah, okay, what certain people have called them that. Maybe that's the wrong terms to use. Yeah. Uber, yeah.
So
free Uber.
Moving on. Whilst the British press was on about Braverman, they weren't on about, or they only touched on the G7 summit in Japan.
Yeah.
When not a great deal was done. No, not a great deal was done. A lot of pounding on the chest like gorillas.
Yeah.
You know, isn't Russia a horrible? Isn't Putin a bad man? Isn't China a horrible country? Basically.
Yeah.
And basically that was it. An interesting thing I took away from the G7 is that President Lula of Brazil, he had a meeting marked with Zelensky of Ukraine. And Zelensky, he was late. And so Lula went off and did his own thing, which I thought was really, really well done.
Yes.
And Lula, I'm not a Lula fan.
Well,
I'm not for him or against him.
No,
I'm an orphan when you talk about politics in Brazil, because I'm here as a guest and I shouldn't really.
Well, we don't make the choice. We have opinions. There are things on both candidates, let's say, that we agreed and disagreed with.
But I wouldn't say it was a political thing. I would say it was more of a a personal thing, I suppose. You know, if they said something that I knew was not true, I'd say it was not true. If this that was true, I'd say that's true. Does Lula have 4.5 fingers on one hand? Yes, he does. You know, that's true.
But that doesn't make him a bad person. It's I mean,
it's a finger. Right.
Yes.
So, but then I had to find out why, why Zelensky would have been late.
Mm,
Because if Lula had said to him, right, we're going to give you a fleet of aircraft,
mm,
he
yeah.
would have been on the spot.
Yeah.
But the position about the Russian invasion
Mm,
of Ukraine, the Brazilian position of the Russian invasion in Ukraine is that Brazil is still trading with Russia,
yes.
and Brazil will not give any arms to Ukraine. Brazil believes that dialogue will
Mm,
resolve the problem.
yeah.
So I think Zelensky, at a certain degree, thought, well, there's nothing to be gained by speaking with Lula.
Mm,
You know?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I find it interesting that in the G7 they were criticizing Russia,
Mm,
China,
mm,
to a certain extent India,
yeah.
but all these nations are BRICS nations,
Yes.
you know, and I think the BRICS nations are going to have a really, really important role in
Mm,
the future
yeah.
in the world in the world economic um, layout
Yeah. Yeah.
as things unravel. Moving on. Also, last weekend
Mm,
was the Bilderberg meeting,
yes. Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
right? That was in Portugal,
Yeah.
in Lisbon. What I thought was interesting is the fact that conspiracy theory sites,
Mm,
where you'd expect uh, coverage
mm,
of the Bilderberg meeting,
mm,
it wasn't what they were saying, what they weren't saying. They weren't covering it, you
mm.
know. Alex Jones didn't cover it,
No.
you know,
Okay.
and a lot of the other um, alternative media sites didn't cover it.
Mm,
There was one guy who I saw a video. What he published on this video was what you could get off the Bilderberg website.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Because about 12, 14 years ago, Bilderberg's
Yeah.
the Bilderberg people
Yeah.
decided to publish everything on a website,
Yeah. Okay.
and so it gave the list of who was invited to go
Mm,
and the topics that were being discussed,
okay.
you know,
Agenda then.
and uh, and basically that was it. Um, there were no. I remember when Alex Jones and his mob
Mm,
used to run after the invited people
yeah.
at the airports and say, why are you going to this secret meeting? And,
Yeah.
you know, um, and I think since the Bilderbergs published what they were
Mm,
doing on the internet,
mm,
the not only the interest of these alternative sites has
yeah.
gone down, and the general public now we
Mm,
know what you're doing.
mm,
Also the participants, because this year
mm.
you had Henry Kissinger. He's part of the furniture of the Bilderberg.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's
Okay.
100. He was 100 years old on Saturday.
Yeah. Very much yesterday's man. Yeah.
Saturday or
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Um, so they wheeled him in,
Mm,
but the rest of the people were like second string
mm,
players. You know, a couple of presidents of small countries.
yeah. What did
You
you see the
know,
present?
but
Yeah.
the Bushes weren't there, for
Mm,
example. The president of the United States wasn't there.
mm,
Bill Gates wasn't there.
mm,
And you'd expect these high players to be there. That in the good old days,
mm,
all these important people were there, but
yeah.
not so much this year.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Do you
sorry,
think
go on.
these things have been seen to be losing their importance as well? I mean,
Yes, of course, yeah,
the big one we talk about now is the WEF, which does
yeah.
seem to be a
Who also the WEF
yeah,
has got a flair behind its ear
yeah,
because the United Nations
yeah,
and the World Health Organization
yeah,
starting to stand on its toes,
Yeah.
starting to stand on its bunions. And I was going to come to that in a second,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
right? But
Yeah.
I wanted to, whilst I was mentioning the
Yeah.
Bilderbergs,
Mm.
when you mention the Bilderbergs, normally you mention Bohemian Grove.
Mm.
Bohemian Grove, for those people who don't know, is a place in the US where they have open air meetings
Mm.
2 weeks in July. I think the first day is going to be the 2nd of July this year.
Yeah.
It's a Bohemian Club is a gentleman's club,
Yes.
a private club
Mm.
with people who are linked with arts and culture,
Mm.
arts and culture, and they have three presentations, um, and the Alex Joneses of this world have said, you know, they have sacrifices, you know, even if they are um, what's the word I'm looking for? They aren't real sacrifices.
No,
They're
no.
just
Okay.
symbolic sacrifices.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so it must be up to no good. Well, I mean, I know an organization that does symbolic sacrifices
Mm.
every year.
Mm.
Every year. It's called a church. It's called the Christian church.
Mm.
And every Easter, you know, if you go to Nova Jerusalem, near to
Mm.
Garuaru, they have an
Yeah.
open theater. And each year, this figure is sacrificed.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
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 And
No, I see
funnily
what you're
enough,
saying.
a few days later, he's resuscitated.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm a Christian. I do believe that. And I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Yes, I can appreciate what you're saying. It is, and yeah, sacrificed himself for our sins. It's in the text. It's in the.
Yes,
It's in.
that's right.
It's
Well, he
probably the
didn't
core
sacrifice.
of our. Yeah.
God sent him down to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
His father sent him down to earth to be sacrificed.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and so you're talking about children being sacrificed in the
Mm.
Bohemian Grove,
Mm.
and which is you know what they've been saying in the past.
Mm.
It's exactly the same as what's been happening in the open theatre.
Mm.
And like I said, you know, the open theatre in Nova Jerusalem,
Mm.
year in year.
Yeah.
And they say they wear funny clothes in the Bohemian Grove.
Mm.
Well, also you look at the Pope, so does he.
Oh, hang on. Yeah. It's. Yeah.
You've got
It's
to
almost
use
as
it
if.
as you've got to be a really open mind about this.
Yeah.
You know,
I
you
know what
can't
you're
say
saying.
no. The Pope, I understand the Pope because we're all used to seeing the Pope with his tall
Yeah,
hat.
it's a ceremonial thing. Yes,
Yeah,
is it?
yes,
And okay, we're used to. I mean, we're British. We're used to ceremonies on different things. Okay, on different
and
things. Yeah, yeah.
interesting thing is that Bohemian Grove
Mm.
is also on the internet now.
Mm.
You know, which is where I found this information.
Mm. Okay, they're open. Yeah. I mean, it depends how you look at it. I mean, going years, a bunch of cranks. It's a. Oh, sorry, shouldn't use that type of language. It could be a bunch of cranks or artistic people. I mean, in the US the other week, there was a satanic gathering which was picked up by elements. Um, it's these things have always been there. Look at history. I mean, the Hellfire Club, for instance, many years ago in England, 1700s. Other things. Yeah, is it people playing? Is it people got an inner belief about it all? Um, it is a very, yeah, obviously I'm stuttering here because yeah, you've just undermined everything I believed in, but yeah, I'm going trying to give you a logical answer. I can. I
No,
mean, okay, it's core belief. It's what people believe.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's not necessarily that. I think it's the fact that it was done behind closed doors.
yeah, yeah. Where's
I mean, I know an organisation
mm,
which we things are done behind closed doors.
yeah,
It's probably
obviously,
the most famous one.
yeah, yeah,
However, all the information about the organisation is available on the internet.
Yeah.
It's just that people can't be bothered to read it or can't be bothered to look it up.
Well, again, I mean, I will talk about the Christian or Catholic Church. Everything about that is online. There's conspiracy theories there, and you can find the information online. Okay, there's research being done. It is, if you, this is it. We follow media on the mainstream media. We read a headline, and that's it. It's shock. Yeah, I mean, we look at some things that maybe other people don't have sometimes. You have to, as you said, you've got to critically think, and that's all you're encouraging me to do as well. You know, think about the sacrifice thing. Yeah, I've never really thought about it in them terms before, but yeah, the sacrifice of the Lamb of God. It is a, and again, it's core for people's belief. But yes, you have to, as I was always taught at school, and I went to a Catholic school, and we were taught critical thinking, even about the Christian faith. Understand what you're believing. Don't just believe it blindly.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, I'm always thankful to my school for that. St Thomas More High School, Westcliff-on-Sea, as a call out to you guys. Yeah, it's interesting. I was showing some students here the other day the website, you know, just so they can compare, you know, a modern English school to their own school. But it's a, but yeah, we've got to think more about these things. Yes, it's easy to get suspicious about things we don't know, and that's human nature, and even make things up, try and fill in the, as I say, we can fill in the blanks ourselves with lack of other information, which is where we're a little bit above AI probably. The trouble is we can hit the wrong assumptions, and yeah, and without investigating more. I mean, yeah, if I want to know something about more and investigate it, I might even seek out someone who may be in a position to give me more information if I so require it. I would state it's an only for academic interest myself, not for any other reason. It is not, I mean, again, people believe what they believe. Some people might just do theatrical ideas. And yeah, to a certain extent, human nature is about theatre. And that I begin with that, as you say, you go to the open air Passion of Christ play in northeast Brazil. It's a spectacular thing to go and see. I've walked around the actual place where it's done without the thing there. You can actually go and visit it. It's a movie set, and I don't, you know, and you see how they actually have Jesus rising, the Christ rising, and everything else. Yeah, does it take the magic away? Not really. I think I can filter through the fact that this is an imagination of events that. Certainly Jesus was crucified. I think we've got that as established fact. Whether or not you believe other things around it all is your own conjecture, your own belief. It's we still talk about miracles today happening. The Catholic Church is always investigating different things. We don't. And I'll tell you, even as a Catholic, I don't have to believe in every miracle and every time Mary Our Lady appears. I don't have to believe it. But people sometimes see things, and I'm not going to judge them because, you know, my whole yeah. Anyway, we move on to the next subject.
The Catholic Church is not held behind closed doors.
No,
and that's why it doesn't receive the same treatment from.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's things happened obviously in the Catholic Church, which as a Catholic, I'm not going to be particularly proud of, and I'm not going to justify or pretend to even defend. Yeah, okay. Anyway,
that's another subject.
Yes, yeah.
United Nations. They managed to credit a Russian bank without going through the SWIFT system. I think I said a week ago that to know if the SWIFT system is that important or not. Yeah, the SWIFT system is a Belgian company. SWIFT is a Belgian company.
Yeah.
Which apparently has all the codes of all the banks and all this.
Yeah. Okay.
But if the United Nations can pay Russia
Yeah.
a Russian bank that has been excluded from the SWIFT system because of sanctions
Mm.
for grain,
Mm.
for grain exports,
Yeah.
then the banking system works if you're in SWIFT or not,
Yeah.
in my view.
Well, I imagine it's just a system that's there. You can bypass anything if you try hard enough.
And I think coming back to the BRICs,
Mm.
I think the tendency is the BRICs are going to come out of the SWIFT system
Mm.
and do their own
Mm.
do their own system, which makes it viable for one country to
Mm.
pay another country in their own currency.
Yeah.
It's just finding the value of determining the value of one country against another. But that's something else.
Yeah.
Talking about the United Nations, the Palais des Nations
Mm.
in Geneva
Yeah.
is not only the home for the United Nations,
Mm.
it's also the World Health Organization
Mm.
is housed there, as is the World Economic Forum.
Mm. Yes.
But the World Health Organization has made a treaty
Mm.
with a lot of countries, and I think the UK is one of them, and I
Mm.
tend to think that Brazil is another.
Mm.
Whereas the World Health WHO
Mm.
will determine
Yeah.
how the countries will treat their citizens.
Mm.
They're trying to make the same treatment the whole world over.
Mm.
And as the Director General of the WHO, this Tedros Ghebreyesus,
Mm.
he's from Somalia, I think, or somewhere like that, somewhere in Africa. He said the next pandemic
Mm.
is going to be worse than the COVID pandemic,
Mm.
and that the treatment will come from the WHO,
Mm.
which is this globalization. You've got the globalization people. The United
Yeah.
Nations is one.
Yeah.
NATO, to a certain extent, is another.
Mm.
World Health Organization is another.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're all sort of congregating in this Palais des Nations, like the EU did
Yeah.
with their crony government. You know,
Yes.
I think
Like that. I like that term. Yes.
yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
on a global scale,
Mm.
it's more like Geneva
Mm.
is and basically, like I said, this treaty basically is each of the countries uh, won't be independent anymore
Mm.
about how they treat the citizens.
Yeah.
It'll all be done through the WHO,
Mm.
which I think is dangerous because our realities in
Mm.
different parts of the world are so different.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody's got the same skill set
Mm.
over the whole world.
Yeah.
So if you decide that a tomograph needs to be done somewhere in the world that is such in Somalia,
Yeah.
they may not have people who can do the tomograph,
Mm.
the same amount of people as like they have in the UK, for
Yeah.
example. Will they send people from the UK to Somalia to get the tomographs because the waiting lists are less,
Mm.
or will they send people from Somalia to the UK
Mm.
because of lack of professionals?
Mm.
All this has got to be sorted out, I suppose. Yeah, it's food for thought. Food for
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. I mean, we should all be helping each other globally anyway, which I always saw. I'm going to be quite honest, the EU with its buying better for our fence around, individual countries are best off helping individual countries. I know there's the problem of exploitation, but I think we're getting beyond that now. I mean, yes, there's this big African conference the other week where you got Africans saying this,
Yeah.
which was quite an interesting thing to dip into on occasions. I mean, yeah, it is we have got to help develop each other, and that's a natural thing to do. As I always say, yeah, that prevents a lot of things, but globalization is not necessarily the answer. As you say, if we've got something to offer Somalia, and Somalia can offer us something, that's great.
I think that you were talking about this meeting of African nations,
Yeah,
and they came to the conclusion that they've been exploited.
yes,
The nations have not been exploited.
mm,
It's the governing bodies in the nations
yeah,
that have been accepted
yeah.
as long as they get paid very well.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
Outside entities can come in
mm,
and do what they like.
mm,
I've never seen in the African nations. It's difficult to find a thin president.
yeah. Well, it's yeah. I'm not. It is. I mean, this has been highlighted many times. I mean, at the moment, there's one country that does seem to have a particular hold over the African continent. Unfortunately, they've put railways there and everything else, and they're now falling apart because of lack of maintenance of things. But yeah, it's a I mean, this is always going to be an issue. How do we help countries that we use the term developing? I mean, we all know that Africa parts are developed, other parts aren't. It's like saying Brazil was a third world country. No, it's not. You and I, even where we live, we can go to some of the most modern office complexes in the world, and I've been in a few. I've been in my professional life. It's incredible to go there. Yeah,
I object to classing a third world country
yeah,
as a country that is not uh, developed very much.
yeah,
You need to go back to the Second World War, after the Second World War, to find out what a first, second, and third
yeah.
world country is.
Mm,
You know, the first world was what the West wanted.
yes.
The second world was what the East wanted,
Mm,
because it decided
yeah,
to divide the spoils.
yeah.
And the third world is what was over, which
Mm,
was of interest, not the first nor the second.
mm,
It nothing to do with development,
no.
which is why you have third world countries like China,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know, who are classed as a developing country, but it
Second,
isn't.
second most powerful, second most powerful country in the world. Yeah, economically.
Soon to be the third, I feel,
Yeah, that's going to happen. I
with a
mean,
little help from their friends.
yeah, yes, we
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it is a yeah. It's a funny words like we discussed last week. It's a transition. How peacefully that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah,
Right.
now, yeah, I read a book by a British author. Was it Scottish author? Now Ferguson, not to be confused with the guy who completely messed up the figures about COVID.
Yeah.
This is a sensible guy. Um, yeah, he's not a historian as such. I think he's an economist who does write history, very cleverly done. And he predicted all this years ago, before probably even the politicians considered it. Or yeah, I mean, let's be honest, politicians are not the brightest bunch sometimes, or even if they read, it's self-interest. That's not to say, oh, every politician isn't. We've got to be careful saying that. Blanking the few with the many. Yes.
I think self-interest is 90% of it.
Yeah. And
When you talk about politics,
yeah.
I'm afraid it isn't thinking of others now, it's thinking about self first.
Mm,
I
yeah.
really, I really do. Because you have two political parties, main parties in the
Yeah.
UK, and both of them basically have got the same manifesto.
Mm,
What I thought was interesting is the by-elections recently, I think it was yesterday, before
mm,
yesterday, where uh, the party that used to be UKIP,
mm.
um, I don't know if it's UK First or
Is it reform now?
Reform.
reform. Yeah.
They got elected councillors and the mayor of a city in the UK. I think the people in the UK are revolting,
So to speak. Yeah. The peasants' revolt, Mark II.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, this has happened now. You and I have been saying this for years now. Whether or not reform, the other one is reclaim. Reclaim are probably not the entity they.
No, it's one with Richard Tice is the president.
Yeah, that's the one. That's reform. And again, he's now, well, they're brought in as a consultant, a certain Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
He's a big personality. The trouble is, yes, when you've got a party that is personality, one personality as opposed to an actual any substance, and we got to see what the real manifesto is for reform. They look appealing on the outset. I don't think you can actually argue they're one way or another. They're going to look at and probably come up with idealistic politics or policies, which, again, we all know that manifestos are written, manifestos are ignored or have to change due to circumstances. I think reform, I think the people we find behind reform are well-meaning people. And, you know, it's possibly somewhere that Tory politicians could quite easily slip into, and possibly some Labour ones, if required. Let's be honest about it. It
with a great deal of difficulty will a turkey vote for Christmas.
Yeah, and this is it. It's going to be. I mean, the next general election in the UK. I mean, your guess is as good as mine when that will next be. Well, some people say it's going to be sooner than that. I think if there was too many more changes of the Tory leadership, I think there'll have to be an election to at least sort that out. We all know that the natural winner probably would be Boris Johnson still, which is why they got to discredit him.
Again.
Okay, you can argue or not argue on that. That's a bit of a more emotional thing. I used to work indirectly for him. I worked for an organisation. He's not the idiot he pretends to be.
No, which makes even worse, because if he has got this public persona of being a buffoon, you know, when he's in public, he's false.
Okay. Anyway,
he should be.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Anyway,
let's go.
Let's go. Hope you had enjoyed it today, Steve, and obviously a bit longer than we intended, but it's been
worth every second.
It's been good talking to you. Anyway, we'll stop there. And I hope that anyone who's listening to this subscribes or likes our videos and shares them, because you know, we have things to say. You can agree or disagree with us. If you enjoyed this discussion, can you please like, subscribe and share it? Thank you.